You know, the days may be getting shorter. It's getting darker and darker outside. But the future of the Green Bay Packers, now that is getting brighter, brighter, brighter. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where I'm your host, John Delray. Today, I've got just a few injury updates for you, but then we are diving into a topic that it may feel odd. You may be philosophically opposed to the existence of this episode right now, and I get it. Lord knows I haven't started draft prep or anything to that effect yet, but it is one of the questions that I actually most frequently face when we do our live Q&As or just, I see conversation about it in Twitter even, that this is a topic, that this is people want to know as this season is now in its latter stages of what are we looking forward to in the draft, given how the team has performed thus far? What are the contract situations? Who's around next year? Might there be another Rasul Douglas-style trade this offseason or release? Who are we looking forward to, or at least what positions are we looking to address in the 2024 NFL Draft? Look, I know it feels too early to even think about it. The Packers are in the midst of a potential playoff push. They might upset the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Yes, all these things remain. And also, what is GM Brian Gutekunst's job right now? Filling out the roster as well as looking ahead. So we're doing the exact same thing and hopefully answering some of those questions that I get hit with quite a bit when we are live together, watch parties or Q&As, what have you. Now, looking at the rest of this week, this Friday is going to be the game preview between Packers and Chiefs. Look for that on Friday. And then Sunday Night Football, Packers versus Chiefs. Of course, we will be hosting a watch party here, so make sure to check that out as well. Now, as for the injury updates of the day, and not just injury, I should say roster updates, really, because Bo Melton and James Robinson, you may recall, they were released the other day. They were signed to the 53, then they were cut from the 53. Well, now they're back on the practice squad, Packers retaining both of them. In addition to that, they also signed tight end Joel Wilson to the practice squad and released cornerback Anthony Johnson. This is not seventh-round pick safety Anthony Johnson Jr. He's still on the team. He's still on the 53. This is a different dude, a guy that they had on the practice squad by the name of Anthony Johnson. He's the one who's gone. Now, as for that injury report, today there were 3 did not practices. That would be A.J. Dillon, Jaden Reed, and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, we know, is still a ways off. Jaden Reed, all the alarm bells going off about that one. Why did he not practice? And from the sounds of it, from people who were there, sounds like it was more just hey, he's banged up. He's got a lot going on. We're just giving him a day off. And then A.J. Dillon not practicing today, even after playing last week against Detroit. Matt LaFleur actually acknowledged in the case of Dillon in his press conference that Dillon just has a lot of injuries going on. They're trying to get him healthy for Sunday. The priority is Sunday, not a midweek practice. So still, nonetheless, expect Dillon to be out there on Sunday in spite of this DNP. As for your limited practices, this was a lot. Jair Alexander, Devondre Campbell, Kenny Clark, Josiah DeGuara, he returned to practice, so, he limited. Rudy Ford, Rashawn Gary, Eric Stokes, Datavian Wicks, Robert Rochelle. Whew! You know who's not on that list, though, would be safety Darnell Savage, who apparently practiced in full. That whole list coming from Bill Huber of Sports Illustrated. So, now, to get to the topic of the day, let's dive right in. There's a ton to discuss because we're talking about the vast majority of the roster. So, let's just get to it now. A few things to bear in mind. Obviously, this is really, really far out. Okay. If something happens, okay, if someone gets hurt, then all of a sudden a backup comes in, plays better than we've ever seen someone at the position, you can just throw all this away. This is as things stand right now. How have players played thus far into the season? Also, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the prospects themselves. Why? Because as we know, we're not even to the combine. We're not even to the end of the year. We haven't even played bowl games or the Senior Bowl or any of that stuff. Draft stock is going to wildly change for a lot of players that are declaring themselves for the draft right now. Of course, you've got your Caleb Williamses, you got your Marvin Harrison Jr.'s. They're cemented. But the vast majority of these guys, their stock is fully yet to be determined. There's a set range, sure, but we're not there yet. So I'm not going to be talking about particular names because, frankly, that's a waste of time. Okay, so I also want you to bear in mind where the Packers have a bevy of draft picks as of right now. They have 1 in the first round, that's theirs. 2 in the second round, the Jets and theirs. 2 in the third round, theirs and the Bills. Then they've got a 4th rounder, a 6th, and a 7th. Their 5th was moved to the Bills in that Rasul Douglas trade. But in addition to their 3, 3, 4, 6, 7 on the back end, they are expected to get a few compensatory selections. These would be because of the contracts of Jerron Reed, or most notably Al Lazard, guys who signed away from the Packers last offseason. As of right now, it looks like the Packers are in line to be getting either a 4th or a 5th for Al Lazard, and then a couple of 6ths because of Cobb, Reed, etc., the collective that signed elsewhere over the offseason. So this is a long list of picks. Let's just factor those in again, okay? 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, maybe another 4, and then 6, 6, 6, maybe 7. Like tons of picks at the disposal of the Packers, who expect a lot of movement in this draft and expect them to be able to get quite a few positions here. I'm just trying to gauge, in the first round, where might they be picking in the third round? Where might they be picking position-wise? So here we go. Let's start off with the biggie right off the bat. We're going to go position by position. Number 1, quarterback. Now, we have Jordan Love, 1 year left in his contract. It is an important detail to note. Ken Ingles on Twitter, other people have been talking about this, but it looks like even if the Packers fall head over heels with their quarterback 1, they want to lock him up right now. They can't really, because apparently rules in the CBA are not allowing the Packers, because he just did an extension. So you got to wait so long before you can do another extension. So it looks like even if the Packers want to, even if they agree to it right now, they can't actually sign on the dotted line until mid-May 2024, after the draft has occurred. So he's got 1 year left in his deal, even if they're talking about adding more. Doesn't really matter right now. Sean Clifford, he's got 3 years left in his contract. So basically, I just don't see this becoming a high need. I think by the end of the season, the Packers are going to be comfortable handing the keys formally over to Jordan Love for the long haul. He certainly is on that trajectory right now. Still some concerns, but he's on the way. Considering Sean Clifford is only entering his 2nd season, and I still believe that part of the rationale of picking Sean Clifford was basically so that they had like a veteran rookie. You know what I mean by that? I talked about that a lot at the draft, that maybe Sean Clifford doesn't throw the most accurate stuff, but that's an old man right there based upon play experience and everything else. So he's basically going to be the vet backup moving forward. The Packers still might want to hedge their bets, though. Yes, you've got Love, you've got Clifford, but they may still want to spend some kind of mid-round selection, mid to late, on a quarterback, a project quarterback maybe, another person for the room. I don't know as if the Packers will be 1,000,000% comfortable moving into the future with only Love and Clifford, so I could see another pick expected here. However, the priority, mid to low. Now, running backs, another very, very interesting position. Aaron Jones only has 1 year left in his contract. He's aging. He's getting hurt more, and it's a very high cap number next year. A.J. Dillon set to be a free agent. Emmanuel Wilson is an exclusive rights free agent. And then, of course, you got the in and out nature of Patrick Taylor. The future uncertainty of this position is looming large right now from a roster building standpoint. This could be a bottom need this offseason if they retain Aaron Jones, re-sign A.J. Dillon, and believe Emmanuel Wilson is the future. It could be a position that they don't touch at all. Or it could be a remarkably high position if they move on from Aaron Jones, don't re-sign A.J. Dillon, and think Emmanuel Wilson's just a dude. Then all of a sudden it's real high on the priority list. So I'm saying is this is one of 2, maybe 3 positions on the team that are just massive question marks right now, depending on how certain finances fall in order, about what the Packers' true intentions are. Still, though, I find it very hard to believe that the team is going to move on from Aaron Jones. It could be a completely reworked contract, another pay cut taken by Jones, something. I just find it very hard to believe that they're just going to cut him loose. And A.J. Dillon, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I said this back in August. Won't be shocked at all if he's re-signed on some type of Jamal Williams-esque style contract. And they've kept Emmanuel Wilson up until his injury on the 53 all year. They obviously like the dude enough. Still, though, even if you do all that, retain Jones, retain Dillon, and Wilson, the position is still a question mark for the future. You just can't look at that position and say, unequivocally, we have our guy for the next 5 years. because you don't. If they re-sign Dillon, it's probably going to be something in the 2-year variety. Jones's time is beginning to run out. Father Time is catching up to him. I think we all see that. Then you've got Emmanuel Wilson, who probably isn't going to be enough to carry the running back position all on his own 2 years from now. So this is a fairly high need. Even if you retain everybody, I still would expect this position to be addressed in the draft, if not multiple times. There's no way, given that it's a running back position, that the Packers spend a first on it. It's not how the Packers do business. But nonetheless, this is a high need for the Packers. Second, third round, something like that would be my expectation. Wide receiver. This is more baby Packers than anywhere else, and boy, are they growing up. Watson's got 2 years left, same as Dobbs. Reed has 3 years left, as does Wicks. Heath is an ERFA. Toure doesn't really seem to be much in the plans anymore, as he's a healthy scratch week after week. So what did, about a month ago, look like a fairly high priority for them, now actually looks pretty low. Unless, and I'm going to throw one caveat on there, if the Packers completely mess up the rest of the season or whatever and find themselves in the territory of a Marvin Harrison Jr. or one of the other like neighbors, one of the big wide receiver prospects in this draft, then maybe you go for it. But I would say a couple things. One, if you're choosing that high, you better figure out what has gone wrong in total of the team this year, and wide receiver may not be the biggest need to address. Two, I would hope that it would be a receiver with a different skill set than what they currently have, especially someone like a contested catch, red zone maven, maybe something like that. Still though, let's say the Packers season goes as the trajectory currently points to, and the team continues to win their easier games, or maybe losing some of the bigger, still going to float around a 500 record-ish. So I just don't think that's going to put the Packers in position to choose one of those big three, thus meaning this probably won't be a first-round pick for the Packers again. I don't think that they're going to completely ignore the position, but I wouldn't expect an early draft choice to occur. Now let's look at tight end. You've got Musgrave. You've got Kraft. They each have 3 years left. Ben Sims is an ERFA, and then DeGuara is set to be a free agent. The DeGuara experiment, that's probably likely done in Green Bay. He serves a purpose, but not an invaluable one that can't exactly be replicated or replaced. Musgrave and Kraft, they're the future of the position. There's no doubt about it. Sims has been a nice depth piece. And also, don't forget about Tyler Davis. Yeah, he suffered that ACL injury, but they really were high on him for a number of reasons. Not just special teams, but also just playing in the offense. They had a role for him pretty undoubtedly from the way that they were talking back in August. So maybe DeGuara is set to walk and they just re-sign Tyler Davis again because he does look ready to go by next training camp. That will have been a full year, basically. So regardless, don't expect this to be a high need. You've got Musgrave. You've got Kraft. That's your future, and they're probably going to stay leaning into it. If this is addressed, expect it to be some kind of hybrid back type like DeGuara was supposed to be, probably in day 3. I don't see another draft where Gutekunst completely defaults to what LaFleur wants and goes with a hybrid in round 3. I don't see it coming this year. Let's talk tackles. That need? Hi. Zach Tom is the future at one of the tackle spots. He's played way too well at tackle to continue this talk of maybe kicking him inside. Dude's a tackle, probably going to stay at a tackle. Now, Yash, probably gone. Caleb Jones is a nice depth piece who obviously is continuing to develop since they're carrying him on the 53, but will not let him see the light of day in any way, shape, or form. Rasheed Walker, he's done enough to show you that he can probably be a capable swing tackle, but he hasn't done enough to say, all right, next year he's our full-time guaranteed starter. He's not even that right now. And then you've David Bakhtiari. A couple things here. A lot of Packer people are projecting Bakhtiari to still be the absolute starter at left tackle in week 1 next year, and I totally get it. And that's assuming his health, of course. I totally get it, and frankly, I wouldn't even really be upset with it. But there are a couple details here that I do want to point out. Looking at his contract, his cap number next year is $40 million. $40 million for left tackle David Bakhtiari next year. About $21 million of that can be opened up if they release him after he passes a physical. 19 of that 40 stays on the cap, no matter what. It is there. It was paid in past years and just pushed forward. It's there. It's staying. They cannot get his number under 19. So, and that's a big part of people's rationale for keeping him, is that 19 is there no matter what. You only get the 21 opened up if he passes a physical, which like is a massive question, especially in the offseason when you may be angling to release him. So here's the thing. If he can't pass a physical and the Packers want to release him, then he can file an injury grievance, which is essentially like a lawsuit against the team, against the league, trying to recoup some of the money that otherwise would be paid to him. Okay, part of that 21 million, really. And really, that's basically saying because I was hurt playing football, I should be entitled to the rest of my money that I earned from playing football. Okay. The way that this works in the NFL is when an injury grievance is filed, 40% of the total that's been filed against, or in this case, about $8 million would be retained on the Packers cap. And that $8 million stays on the Packers cap until there's resolution in Bakhtiari's case, which sometimes can take months or years. So people are saying, hey, look, if they cut him because he doesn't pass a physical, he's just going to file a grievance, and the Packers aren't opening up that much anyway. I would counter by saying it's still a $12 million opening that they would get for moving on from David Bakhtiari. And if he can pass a physical, then it's $21 million that you're opening up for moving on from David Bakhtiari. But the obvious counter is you're moving on from David Bakhtiari, one of the best left tackles, if not the best in the history of the Green Bay Packers, a 5-time All-Pro across first and second All-Pro teams. You don't just want to get rid of him willy-nilly. If you believe that this last medical procedure is his healing factor, is the thing to finally clean up that knee once and for all, well, yeah, then you probably just figure out how to compromise on his contract because there's no way he's rolling out on a $40 million cap number. And you figure out how to keep him. So regardless, though, in terms of the exact context of this conversation, it's a high need. Because even if David Bakhtiari is perfectly healthy, even if he is kept on a $40 million, what's the future of the position? Because I don't think they're going to plan on Bakhtiari for 5 more years. So it's the future of the position. If Rasheed Walker is showing capably as a swing, you got Zach Tom over at right. You got to find the next David Bakhtiari. And oftentimes, even though Bakhtiari wasn't, nor was Zach Tom, but still the likelihood dictates the most likely place you're going to find those guys would be in round 1. I think this could be a very, very high need for the Green Bay Packers this year. In terms of the interior offensive line, Myers has 1 year left on his deal. I think he's sticking around based upon how the Packers have talked about him. Jenkins definitely isn't going anywhere. John Runyon Jr., he's a free agent after the year. Newman is a free agent after the year. Plus, then you also have Sean Ryan, who has 2 years left on his deal. And frankly, Sean Ryan needs a chance to prove that he can be the dude at right guard over the remaining slate of games. I know they're playing him some, but let's start playing him more and actually get our evaluation in. Now, let's say that he comes in, plays great, locks down the position for the next 2 years. Then this becomes kind of mid to low. Maybe you're looking for a new Josh Myers, some better depth, because if Newman and Runyon are gone, you need bodies on the interior offensive line. So still kind of a mid-need, no doubt. If Ryan can't be the guy, and Runyon's a free agent, Newman's a free agent, all of a sudden you need a starting right guard. And then it's a high need. Now, would the Packers choose an interior offensive lineman in the first round? Probably not. Kind of goes against their deal. Second round? Yeah, that could absolutely be the case. Now let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. This one isn't going to probably take as long as the offense, but the interior defensive line. Kenny Clark, 1 more year left on his deal. Wooden and Brooks, 3 each. Wyatt, 2 or 3, depending on his option. And then Slayton has 1 year left in his deal, just like Clark. And they both have that 1 year remaining, and they might appear to be some room here, but here's my question. You have 5 defensive linemen, all unequivocally making the roster next year. I don't see them moving on from any one of these guys based upon how they've performed. Historically, what do they do with the 6 defensive linemen? Nothing, or they just don't carry one. This dude doesn't play. It was in the past different bodies that have passed through, Jack Heflin, amongst others, Jonathan Ford, who's on the practice squad now. It's guys that don't wind up playing. They just don't employ 6 defensive linemen. And I don't see them in a position to move on from one of these 5 either. I think both Slayton and Clark might be extension candidates. Clark, that would be crazy. It's his 3rd contract in Green Bay, but still, dude's only 28 years old. Yeah, he's been playing forever. He still is only 28 years old. He could be an extension candidate at that age. And then you've got Slayton, who might be due up for a second-round pick. So while you may want a big-bodied run stuffer, you may want better play out of the interior defensive line. My question is, if they choose that, who goes? And I just don't see any of them going. So maybe this will be a day 3 pick. Throw some beef in there, maybe a new John Ford style player, someone who they trust more to see the field, something to that effect. But ultimately, this probably just isn't going to be a position of priority this year. Now, looking at edge. Hey, count me amongst the Preston Smith believers, because I know a lot of people are saying Preston Smith is gone after this year. Look at the cap. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah. But the thing is, when they drafted Rashawn Gary, the plan was to have Rashawn Gary behind Z and Preston for 2 years, not just one. And now they have LVN and they have Preston and Gary ahead of them. I think this is a 2-year deal again, or a 2-year maturation of LVN is the expectation. Releasing Preston Smith in a conventional pre-June 1st manner this offseason would net the Packers a whopping $2.5 million in cap savings and $14 million in dead cap. If they were to go to the post-June 1 designation, then they're opening up $12 million in cap, but it spreads $13 million in dead cap between 24 and 25. And I don't think they really want to touch that 25 cap, because I think Gutekunst wants that as the next year of true financial freedom to go get some help, just like he did when he first came on board as GM and signed Preston and Sedarius and the crew. So what I think you're looking at is next year, this is still going to be a 3-headed monster with Preston, Rashawn, LVN, and Enigbari thrown in just for good measure. Priority, you can never have too many edge players, but spots are full. I think this is fairly low this year. Inside linebacker. Quay has 2 or 3 years left, depending on the 5th-year option. Campbell has several years left in his contract, but I think he's in the exact same boat as Preston. It seems to be that they're structured where both of them can get released after next year in fairly clean manners. McDuffie, he's got 1 year left, and we know how much they've liked him. And then you got Wilson and Welsh, who are mainly just special teamers and predominantly free agents after the year. I think this position's in really good hands. And frankly, the way that I could see this playing out is retain, again, let's just take Wilson and Welsh off the conversation. Let's just focus on the 3 guys who've really gotten playing time this year. I could see this playing out, 3-headed monster next year, McDuffie, Campbell, Walker. And then after next year, move on from Campbell and then re-sign McDuffie. Then you've got McDuffie and Walker, thus making it a need in the future, not yet this offseason. Low need. Cornerback. Now, I'm piecing out slot as a different position because that's a different conversation. But Carrington Valentine, 3 years left. Jair, he's not going anywhere. Stokes has either 1 or 2 years left, depending on if they pick up the 5th-year option. And then Corey Ballantyne is set to be a free agent. And in my opinion, I don't think a lot of people are talking about this one yet, but this could be a sneaky high need for the Packers. Stokes' health is a massive question, which you got to believe diminishes the chances that they will pick up his 5th-year option this offseason. Yeah, keep that in mind. The 5th-year option has to be activated after 3 years of the NFL. So they got to make that decision this offseason. And it's kind of tough to do that based upon the fact that Stokes has played 4 snaps this year. So something to keep in mind here. It's possible that Eric Stokes winds up this offseason signing kind of like a Jordan Love 5th-year extension, right? Like we're not picking up the option, but we want you around. So here's like an in-between style contract with some escalators, stuff like that. Now, in the case of Valentine, he's showing that he can be a more than legitimate starter at the cornerback position. And Jair's spot is safe, like very safe. However, as we've seen this year, you really actually want 4 corners that can be relied on. It's a fragile position with sometimes fragile guys who get hit a lot. So you really want 4. And depending on how it all falls, I do see this as a position that the Green Bay Packers might want to spend a premium pick on. It's a premium position, and the Packers generally spend their first-round picks on guys that are highly athletic, young, and premium positions. Cornerback can fit the bill. And just think about that. If they do spend something like their first-round pick on a corner this year, or even a second-round pick, that means that you're trotting into next year with Jair, Stokes, Valentine, and the new rook. You're set there for quite a long time. So let's put this at medium high. depending on Stokes' health, especially. Now, slot corner, it's high. Like, look, Nixon is a free agent after this season, and given how he's been neutralized as a returner this year, he's lost a little bit of value there. It's hard to believe that the Packers spend really big on Nixon again. As a slot corner, he's also been fairly below average this year. He's been a necessary spark at times in the way of aggression and energy, but also in coverage, he's been downright deficient at times too. So keep in mind, too, from a roster building standpoint, it's not just on Nixon. Like, the Packers really faltered at the slot corner spot by not having anyone else to go play slot corner. It's been all Nixon. They don't have anyone else to do it. Sure, Savage can do it, but Savage has got to go fix safety. So they've kind of done this to themselves at the slot spot. So Stokes, Alexander Valentine, they're all boundary guys. Even when Razul's here, they tried him at slot. Didn't exactly go great. So I think they got to get a slot corner in here. Someone who can really cover, someone who can be your star position in Joe Barry's defense or whoever's defense it is at the helm next year. However, slot corners are generally built a little different than boundary corners, and it's not considered a premium position like boundary corners may be. However, if they spend an early pick on a corner this year, I would hope it would be someone with some versatility, perhaps to kick inside, or maybe they wind up kicking Jair inside to really become a problem if both Valentine and Stokes or a rookie take the boundaries. So there are some options here, some finagling to be done. Nonetheless, I am identifying this as a pretty high need for the Packers, though, just not in the first round. Now let's take a look at safety. The last position we're covering today, because no, I am not talking about special teams when it comes to draft allocation. So in terms of safety, Anthony Johnson Jr., he's done some really nice work stepping up. Really like his instincts, his coverage skills. The fact that he's a former corner actually shows quite a bit back there. It's all the reasons I really loved him in the draft. They're beginning to show more and more. He's got 3 years left in his contract. Owens was mostly a negative filling in until in Detroit when he had the game of his life. Then you've got Savage in the final year of his deal. And while Savage did play earlier this year, he was steady, not yet spectacular, but steady. And then Rudy Ford, who was actually having a ridiculously great season above expectation until he started sustaining multiple injuries that have knocked him out over the last few games. So of the 4 safeties who have garnered significant playing time this year, only 1 is under contract moving forward. And any of the other 3 may be re-signed. Maybe even 2 of the 3 are re-signed. Unless, though, it's still a big need. It's not as premium a position as offensive tackle or cornerback or wide receiver. It's just not a premium position. But it's a gaping hole on the Packers roster that has to be figured out somehow. And one with some actual staying power, not more one-year plugins. So that's that. You want to know where the Packers may spend their premium picks? Look for an offensive tackle, a cornerback, a safety, and then follow that up with interior offensive line and perchance a running back. Beyond that, though, then look for depth, filling in pieces, or unique attributes that the roster doesn't currently have. Thanks so much for joining me here on Lombardi Time Brews. As I said, I'll be back on Friday, game preview for Packers versus Chiefs, and then on Sunday for our watch party. I do hope you are having an excellent week out there. And as always, go Pack, go.